Welcome to the APH Career Connect video blog series, where we interview successful blind folks from around the United States and the world. My name is Richard Reda, and I'm with the APH Career Connect Center. And today we are going to interview Mr. Joe Hodge with American Printing House for the Blind, and he's going to talk with us about his job in our video blog series. Joe, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Richard. It's fun to be here today.
So thank you for joining us. Would you start off by telling us a little bit about who you are and your position with APH?
Yep. So my name is Joe Hodge, as you just mentioned, of course, and so I have been at APH 4 years. I've been doing quality assurance. I just got a new job, however, with APH doing global innovations. I'm going to join that team and be the global innovations manager. I don't know if that job title is going to change, but I believe that right now is what it's titled. So I'm excited to kind of start that venture. But a little bit of what I do with quality assurance in the 4 years I've been here is I've done testing with software and hardware. So primarily been on Braille displays, the computer programs that the TPR developers develop, and just look at bugs and test different screen readers. Also just different operating systems. So it's been fun. As far as a little bit about myself and my background before I got to APH, I grew up around the Fort Wayne, Indiana region area, and went to Ball State University, got a degree. And one of the really hard parts of of going to college and once you graduate is finding a job. And in the blind realm, as we all know, the unemployment is fairly high. I think it's at 70% last time I looked.
Yes.
It was a struggle. It's kind of a wake up call for me because I graduated and I couldn't find a job. So it took me about a year to get my first job. I actually got a job right away after college. I'll start there kind of briefly at Apple, and I did the interview and went in and was ready to start my first day. On the bus on the way in for the first day, Apple, my supervisor, called me, and she said, "Are you already on your way?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, you may want to turn around and go home." And I said, "Well, why? What's going on?" And she said, "Well, I just learned that the hiring, like all of the interview like things that they have you do to be a new hire, are inaccessible. So with the Mac, so it was around the same time that VoiceOver debuted on the Mac. So
Right.
it wasn't surprising to me, but it was also a shock that here I am out of college, never faced that kind of thing before, and now what do I do? I actually got there and called a cab to go back home because I probably should have, looking back on it, fought it more, but like being so green out of college and just sort of learning how to be an advocate for myself, I didn't know exactly what to do. So anyway, I don't want to. We'll probably circle back around to that later in the interview, but after that, I got a job at Humana doing insurance here in Louisville, and I worked with them for 7 years and really kind of pushed accessibility forward, trying to open up jobs for blind and visually impaired folks there as well. And that was a lot of fun. I was looking for a change and then started at APH, and I've really enjoyed sort of my career path.
Great. Yes, I can resonate with the job search too and being frustrated. Thank you. Thinking about your current position, and we're going to go later into your new position. Can you talk with us about some of your day-to-day essential job duties and what you're expected to do and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So basically, what happens is we have a bug tracking system called Redmine. So what I primarily do is about every week a developer will put out a new version of an app. So I'm actually involved with several projects at once. Like right now, just to give you an idea, I'm working on about 7 different projects. So it's fairly busy. And so a developer will put out a new version of an app, or the Braille display will come out with new firmware, and they will give you a list of changes. And what I do is I go through and make sure those changes are indeed working. And then also, I have what's called a minimum checklist, which is something you create when you're getting familiar with the application. And it allows you kind of just to go over and look for bugs you've maybe had in the past, just to make sure they're not reintroduced. And then you also, then there's like a little bit of time with the app that you play just messing around with it, trying to create new bugs. So there's there's always like, you're always playing around with an app to a point to make it, to try to introduce something that a user may see. So that's kind of, and then I do, of course, with APH, my day wouldn't be complete without about 4 or 5 meetings. And so it's kind of like either I'm in a meeting or I'm testing. That's kind of what it's like as far as my day-to-day goes.
Great. So I'm hearing really having to be organized and being able to multitask, which leads me to my next question. Can you talk to us about some of the adaptations that you use on your job, Joe, and how does technology factor into your day-to-day job tasks?
So I use VoiceOver on every operating system. I use a screen reader. So typically I use VoiceOver on the Mac, JAWS on Windows, NVDA, Android with TalkBack, and Chrome OS with Chromevox these days to do a lot of my testing. And so, with my job, I have to actually keep up with pretty much every screen reader because we're testing on all of them to make sure that they're working. So that can be a little bit challenging because, as you know, Richard, every screen reader is a little different. So they have different commands. They
Right.
may work a little bit different from each other. So that's a lot to kind of keep in your mind. And but I do like it because I am very aware of like what each screen reader's flaws are and also what their strengths are. Because I think one part of being blind is that we tend to favor something more than the other. But I look at screen readers as like tools in a toolbox. So if you're out there looking for a job, I think it's important to not sort of put yourself in one trap. Like get familiar with every tool that you can, because you never know when doing a job what tool is going to help you the best.
Right. So I know you mentioned this during your introduction, but I want to kind of go back. Talk to us again about how you got to this position and what are some of the key factors that led you to your current position and to your future position. Maybe successes and failures that really brought you to APH.
So yeah, going back to the original kind of, I guess with the Apple is learning that I can't do every job. So if there's accessibility challenges, you have to just sort of fight through it. And the biggest key that I learned throughout my job seeking process is that I never wanted to stop. So I mean, when you're interviewing for a job, I went on several interviews where I had a guide dog at the time for several years, and it ended up being their interviewee was asking me more about the guide dog than about me, which also indicated that I probably wasn't going to get the job, right? So, so I think like learning, taking different steps along the way to just be confident in myself and also just not give up. Like, you might interview 100 times and on that 101st time you get the job. But the fight's not over because you get the job and then you get into the position and you have to learn, okay, what's accessible. So like when I was working at the insurance company here in Louisville, there were a lot of different databases that I had to interact with on a daily basis that weren't accessible. So it was educating the folks at Humana that, hey, this can be accessible, there can be workarounds, and basically just showing them that I can do the job, and that went really well. And so when I did that for 7 years, I kind of said to myself, I want to get into a position where I'm impacting the field that I grew up in. So like for me, growing up as a totally blind student, education and what different things meant to me as a kid. Like for example, the Braille and Speak, was a tool I used every day, and it meant so much to me, and it's the one piece of technology outside of the iPhone, I think, as a new technology that has defined my life. And because it put me on the same level, or basically the same level as every other student. Of course, there were still tech challenges back then, but so I was really, when I applied for the job at APH, I kind of had that in mind, like, I'd love to be able to be able to test the things that students are going to be seeing, make their lives better. It's been
Sure.
a little while since I was a student, but I want to be able to take my knowledge and make an impact there. Um, so I think being, doing quality assurance for 4 years, doing webinars, I got the ability to kind of go to conferences like CSUN, and CES for the last few years, and really just kind of I took that and kind of grew with it. So I was able to, uh, get around people in the field that have had a lot more years in it than me, take their knowledge, put it with my knowledge. And when the Global Innovations job opened up, I said, I need to apply for that because I'd like to move out of being just a tester. I'd like to take some of my ideas for students and actually, make a product, help maybe shape a product that's in the future, more so than I could do as a quality assurance, analyst. So I applied for the Global Innovations position, and that's my hopes and dreams, is that I'll be able to come up with new technology ideas that will be in the classroom with students. I think that's or even as an adult now, there's a lot of things. The iPhone, as I mentioned, does a lot, but there's
Yeah.
still a lot that I struggle with, that I think we've sort of made too hard. Like, I'd like to get back to doing some more, like, technology is great, but
Yeah.
sometimes I want something a little bit, dumber. I don't need, an MP3 player and everything, for example.
Indeed.
So yeah, it's just, I really hope to take some dreams and put them out into products, and see where it goes.
No, this is an exciting time to really be a blind person in the workplace. For our viewers, you had mentioned CES and CSUN. For the uninitiated, CES is Consumer Electronics Show. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And then CSUN is like the premier adaptive technology conference held annually in California.
That's
And
correct. Yeah.
I've been there twice, and it's really, really cool. Going back to you talked about screen readers and really knowing your products. Thinking about your wider, through a wider lens, Joe, your workplace. What are other tools and devices that you use to navigate your workplace that might not be screen reader related, that really help you maximize your career success?
So one thing I use a lot is and it's something that came out in the last 2 years, is Seeing AI. So a lot of times, like, I'll get a piece of mail, or I'll get maybe some instructions that I need to read. And in the past, I'd had to find a scanner, or scan them in, read them. Now I can just take my phone, point the camera at the text, and actually get some usable information out of it, kind of figure out, listen to some instructions on what I need to do, for example. So I think the phone, there's applications of the phone, like Seeing AI, that's really key. Um, I've actually kind of transitioned. Money Reader was a big one for a while when I first started, because I dealt with cash a lot more, in the day-to-day job, like, especially with insurance.
Sure.
I don't deal with that now, so that's less important. But I would say that one was a big one. But really, outside of screen readers and Seeing AI, that's primarily it. I do a lot of note taking, and for that I do use a braille display. So I use, it changes with my job, because fortunately with APH we're constantly, we've had 4 different braille displays since I've started. So it seems like every few months I get a new one to play with an editor.
Nice.
So currently I'm using the Mantis and Chameleon. I kind of trade off and on. There's a 40 cell and a 20 cell braille display, and I take notes on those, and am able to kind of go back and read those notes over time. as you get older, I will say it's very true. Like you hear people say you forget things quicker, and it is like it's like I'll go to a meeting, 2 weeks later I'm like, what did we talk about? And I can go back to those notes. So I find that taking notes as I get older and have a lot more projects going on, that's much more beneficial to me now than it probably would have been, a decade ago.
As a follow-up question, what the trend I see in interviewing folks is a lot of successful blind folks like yourself invest a lot of time outside of work to really learn their stuff. Do you find that you're doing that to stay competitive in the workforce, studying your tech, your other technology skills to be competitive in the workplace?
Yes. So a lot of times, like I'll upgrade to the newest operating system, or right away, just even if it gives me bugs at first, because
Yes.
I want to know what's happening, and I want to know and play with the new features. Because a lot of times, like they are, especially on the mainstream products, that you see features that come along that are actually more helpful, like the OCR feature from iOS this year. For example, that's actually made some of my apps that were inaccessible to use accessible. So there are features that come out time to time that really do make a difference, and I like to be on the cutting edge of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as a blind person myself, I definitely find myself doing homework and being competitive with the workforce.